Our next speaker is Professor Mpedi. He's the Vice-Chancellor and Principal at the University of Johannesburg, and he and I tend to follow each other quite a bit because was it 3 weeks ago that we were sitting on the same stage? Today, Professor Mpedi is going to talk about the critical role of higher education institutions in preparing tomorrow's leaders. A warm round of applause, please, for Professor Mpedi.
You can't get rid of me.
You can't get rid of me. Good to see you.
Mr. Program Director, Mr. Melanie Africa, you can't get rid of me. 3 weeks ago, we were together at another conference. We shouldn't advertise other people. Ne? Wonderful. The leadership of PURCO, I was asking myself, is it PURCO? Is it PURCO? Is it PURCO? I hope I'm not messing it up. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's a great honor for me to be addressing you this morning on shaping the future, the critical role of higher education institutions in preparing tomorrow's leaders. After all, as institutions of higher learning, we are in the business of preparing future leaders. Ladies and gentlemen, we are poised at the crossroads of monumental change with enormous responsibility placed on our higher education institutes to mold and actively participate in shaping the future of society and the leaders of tomorrow. Critically, we need to ask the question as to whether the pace of innovation and change has created a lack where universities are on the back foot. The realistic view is that the high-speed changes offer potential for the higher education sector to actively pause and transform society. It does require a new paradigm and meta-reflections on what universities do and how. The shifts, ladies and gentlemen, in knowledge structures and the required transition to new frameworks of learning and teaching cannot be ignored or swept under the carpet. The mandate of higher education institutions is constantly evolving. Through these evolutions, ladies and gentlemen, a constant objective has emerged. We are tasked with preparing tomorrow's leaders. In the African context, this can be viewed through the lens of Ubuntu. Ubuntu, ladies and gentlemen, is predicated on the belief that our existence and identity is deeply intertwined with the collective, which informs our purpose. Humans are thus considered fundamentally interconnected. Ladies and gentlemen, if we are to build on this concept through the lens of leadership, then it stands to reason that leadership is for others too. It is imperative to understand the implications of this for higher education institutions. Ladies and gentlemen, John F. Kennedy's popular quote that leadership and learning are indispensable to each other comes to mind. So, what role do we play? Indeed, we are shaping the future, but how do we do so with this mandate in mind? Whilst the conversation and media focus on the unpreparedness of graduates, universities have a deeper moral obligation to produce graduates with a diverse range of skills and attributes, not just for the economy, but for the individual benefits as well. Within universities, there has been animated discussions on redefining traditional boundaries of disciplines and knowledge, recognizing that it has to be business unusual. The restructuring of the curriculum in higher education to address the changing context and challenges of the 21st century has, in broad terms, taken three forms, namely, the introduction of academic breadth in the undergraduate curriculum, interdisciplinary qualifications and courses at both undergraduate and postgraduate levels, and co-curricular courses and activities focused on skills and the application of skills. Ladies and gentlemen, to equip students to turbulence, for turbulence, apologies, of the 21st century, a holistic approach of curriculum development and teaching is essential to meet the challenges of this new world of work. We must also understand our broader context. The landscape of higher education, ladies and gentlemen, the landscape of higher education curriculum, ladies and gentlemen, is being reshaped by several significant forces, characteristic of the late 20th and 21st centuries, including the increasing interconnectedness of economies, cultures, and societies worldwide, is driving the need for more internationally focused curricula. Rapid developments in information and communication technology are transforming how education is delivered and consumed. The emergence of AI and related technologies is creating new fields of study and changing the skills required in the workforce, and pressing issues like climate change, the need for renewable energy sources, and global health crisis are necessitating curricula that address sustainability and complex problem solving. Ladies and gentlemen, these factors are compelling and propelling higher education institutions to adapt their curricula to prepare students for a rapidly evolving world and equip them with the knowledge and skills needed to address critical global challenges. The imperative for curriculum changes stems from the need to ensure that higher education remains relevant, responsive, and effective in preparing graduates for the complexities of modern society and the workforce. As Alec Bruce, the ex-Vice-Chancellor of Cambridge University, argues, open quote, "I believe that what we need from our universities first and foremost is the provision of young people of an adequately broad knowledge base, together with modern analytical and communication skills, if you like, the modern-day version of Newman's rudiments of intellectual inquiry. Many of our undergraduate courses have become too narrow and over-specialized, and do not equip the young with flexible intellects that will be able to adapt to changing circumstances," close quote. In this regard, ladies and gentlemen, universities need to adapt to a rapidly changing digital environment and must consider the needs of future learners. We have to begin by breaking down silos and adopting interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary approaches. Universities will have to acknowledge that learning needs are changing. The need for more flexible pathways like micro-credentials or modalities of delivery have to change. I'm sure many of us who went to university remember certain courses. You're asking yourself today, why did I do that course? Shouldn't we be given that opportunity to pick and choose what we need and what we can identify with? And micro-credentials can play an important role in that regard. Ladies and gentlemen, this calls for disruptive shifts in pedagogical approaches, which necessitates collaboration and knowledge sharing among educational institutions globally. This effort requires collaboration across various stakeholders, including governments, educational institutions, tech companies, and communities. This can be viewed as a form of multilateralism aimed at broadening access and inclusivity in education. Moreover, drawing on lessons learned during the pandemic, higher education can renew and discover fresh parallel campuses that can reside in the digital space, which we are exploring at the University of Johannesburg. The demand for access that plays itself out annually could be assuaged through digital mirrors of our campuses, drawing on the benefits of technologies to contend with the access dilemma. Whilst this can be created anew and not merely replicated, it does require disruptive shifts to our pedagogical approaches to teaching, learning, and research. At the center of any tectonic shifts made by higher education, there also has to be awareness of the digital divide, which can exacerbate inequities and inequalities of access. Just to give you an example, during the height of COVID-19, many institutions provided to their students, including the University of Johannesburg, with laptops and data. But for those that come from rural areas where internet connectivity is poor, those couldn't help that much, and as a result, many had to come back to campus. So we need to deal with these inequities for these digital twins of the brick and mortar campuses to work. Ladies and gentlemen, this can be considered to be a major conundrum in higher education. All shifts by institutions must take into account the context of their students, the hidden costs of technologies, and the need for careful planning and resource allocation. It is a fallacy that quality education delivered online is cheaper and thus requires less resources. In 2020, ladies and gentlemen, Yankees outlined that 3 factors impact the digital divide: access to hardware, understanding digital means of communication, and internet affordability. We cannot solve these challenges in silos. Across the continent, we have to implement the overarching 4th Industrial Revolution plans that speak to this shift. Further, ensuring that digital education is of high quality and appropriately resourced involves strategic planning and investment from various sectors. Multilateral partnerships can help posit solutions, pool resources, share costs, and develop infrastructure that supports high-quality online education. Ladies and gentlemen, we also have a duty to develop leadership skills in our students embedded in ethics. In establishing an ethical framework, leaders have to emphasize honesty and integrity because it enables them to build trust, promote ethical behavior, enhance their credibility, foster transparency, and hold themselves and their followers accountable. This framework has to be established at universities as the complexity of governance and management of our institutions has increased exponentially. Injecting these principles in all aspects of education allows us to create a cohort of leaders who have a deep understanding of ethics and governance. Ladies and gentlemen, in the South African context, we have seen some of our universities descend into dysfunctionality. It is also possible to extrapolate and point to the system failures in state-owned enterprises. As leaders in higher education, how do we learn from these lessons? There is clearly a need for robust and strong governance structures, but more critically, ethical leadership. This type of leadership must be imbued with integrity, accountability, honesty, fairness, and transparency. These are not the only values. There are many more that can be added, but it is the enactment of this in volatile environments that is crucial. There are no templates that can be followed beyond the adherence to the values of ethical leadership. It requires, ladies and gentlemen, that universities build this into the DNA of our systems, structures, policies, and people. Ubuntu intrinsically emphasizes the importance of taking a long-term perspective and considering the impact of decisions on future generations. This leadership style encourages responsible and sustainable use of resources. Sustainable development, ladies and gentlemen, thus emerges as a pillar of Ubuntu leadership. Incorporating Ubuntu into leadership discourse and practice could well be the key to the emergence of a cohort of leaders who can contribute to inclusive and equitable development, leaving no one behind. Alongside our commitment to excellence and innovation, we have a responsibility to ensure that we emphasize continuity, innovation, humanity, inclusivity, and purposeful progress in our approach. At the University of Johannesburg, for instance, our new strategic plan, which will be launched next month, is concerned with societal impact and sustainability. This plan is rooted in the understanding that the challenges we face today, climate change, inequality, global competitiveness, and technological disruption are complex, but they are not insurmountable. With the right approach, they offer us unique opportunities to innovate and redefine what it means to be a 21st century university. Ladies and gentlemen, what is it that I mean by societal impact, you may ask? Societal impact will emphasize equitable access, digital innovation, adaptive learning, and impactful research related to issues of sustainability. Universities need to provide guidance on moral, political, and social issues. This is what I refer to as societal impact. This concept, ladies and gentlemen, represents the effect of our research and work in real world. We've got so many challenges: poverty, unemployment, and universities should play an important role in addressing those challenges. So societal impact represents a shift beyond academia to the economy, society, culture, and beyond. Collaborative efforts among educational institutions, governments, and industries will be crucial in fostering an education system that not only imparts knowledge, but also empowers individuals to contribute meaningfully to society. This ties into the very ideas presented by the Sustainable Development Goals. These goals, ladies and gentlemen, could be considered as the guiding force for societal impact. Towards these goals, establishing joint research and design projects between industry and research institutions across countries can facilitate technology transfer, knowledge exchange, and promote innovation in mutual areas of interest, particularly related to areas of sustainable development. Collaborating on skills development initiatives can address workforce needs and promote capacity building, particularly across borders. Last year, at the University of Johannesburg, in partnership with the Department of Science and Innovation, we launched a 3D concrete printing project. Through this 3D concrete printer, a low-cost house can be built in 8 hours. And people were saying this is going to take jobs away from bricklayers. I was asked, I was interviewed, and I said, yes, the machines will take jobs from bricklayers. But we shouldn't only focus on the door that is closing, we must look at many doors that are opening. For example, as this machine can print a house in 8 hours, it means we'll need more electricians, we'll need more plumbers and so on. Besides, these machines will need to be serviced. These machines provide opportunities for these bricklayers to start their own businesses using these machines to print houses. And it's a role of the university to show what these new technologies can do and work with partners to ensure that they are embraced and they can take our economies forward by creating new industries. Ladies and gentlemen, the economist Ricardo Hausmann argues that this is how the working populations gain know-how, which he defines as a combination of implicit knowledge and experience. This transfer of knowledge alongside capacity building initiatives speaks directly to inclusive economic growth and job creation. Hausmann's thesis suggests that there is much more to be gained by an international transfer of knowledge, especially as countries such as South Africa look to leapfrog. Related to my previous point, facilitating the transfer of technology from research institutions to industry can also stimulate innovation and economic growth. Supporting entrepreneurship and startup incubation can spur economic development and job creation. Gone are the days, ladies and gentlemen, of just creating job seekers. As institutions of higher learning, we need to also graduate job creators. People will go out there and create new industries. Collaborative initiatives such as accelerator programs or venture capital funds can provide resources and mentorship to aspiring entrepreneurs in both countries. As Hausmann suggests, there is much more to be gained by widening these collaborations beyond borders. In pursuit of societal impact, ladies and gentlemen, our collaboration represents the power of international cooperation and mutual understanding. This is a space where diverse perspectives converge, where innovative ideas are nurtured, and where the seeds of future collaborations are sown. This, I argue, is how we create a new cohort of leaders equipped for the future. I thank you for your attention.
thank you very much. Good to see you again, as I said.
Yes,
you have
yes,
time
yes,
for
yes.
some reflections
Of course.
and people asking some questions.
Of course.
Because I think you have as much to reflect on, I suppose.
Yes.
Interesting you said that there's a fallacy that education delivered online is cheaper than education delivered in because we've always been taught that.
Yes.
That, you know, somebody will stand in front of a camera and it can almost be anywhere in the world, right? Versus having to have 4 walls and a roof, 250 desks, a lecturer in front of you. That surely is more costly. How do you determine that the cost of online teaching or learning is?
Look, if you want to give quality education, I mean, if you want to dump slides and videos, that is easy. But the difficult part is to give the holistic experience for a student. I mean, if you look at things that we are doing now, we've incorporated virtual reality into teaching and learning, where a student that connects from wherever can put on VR goggles and do experiments. Those initiatives are extremely expensive. And it's not just about what you learn in a classroom. We also want to make sure that students get that experience to interact with other students. As we prepare, you heard me earlier talk about us preparing for the digital twin of the brick and mortar campus. Other things that we are looking at is how can we provide support that we give to our students. We give 24-hour support to our students, you know, for psychological services. We say we want to build this in such a way that students can access such services wherever they are, as long as they are registered with us. Another important thing is that you have to make sure that libraries are accessible around the clock. So you have to stock this up with books and so on, different, you know, digital copies, and many are bought in dollars and not rands. So it's quite expensive.
Absolutely. How do we then attain that, the preparation of a graduate who will actually be fit for purpose, if nothing else, in the future? When your reflection on COVID-19, you issued laptops with data, and there were still students who were not able to use the technology and the tools given to them. How do you, as, I don't know, universities, navigate such challenges?
As institutions of higher learning, we have to be agile. We cannot sit back and say, well, we gave the students laptops and data, that's it. When students reached out to us, and when we realized that this is a problem, we had to come up with other ways to accommodate them. I mean, we provide free Wi-Fi. Well, I mustn't say free, the CFO is here, we do pay for that. But for the students, can access good quality Wi-Fi on campus, so we had to accommodate them. Some, I must be quick to earth and say it was not only because of the lack of data, but conditions at home. You get an uncle that say, I'm going to sell this laptop, and you know, you have to deal with, so you have to be agile. And not say, look, I have this in place, then that's it. Come up with other ways and means to ensure that whatever you put in place works.
After the tea break, Anita now from Stellenbosch University will talk about their institution establishing a venture capital fund has shifted the paradigm in the ecosystem. You made reference to how we should facilitate transfer of research from the academic institutions to industry. In America, we have the other extreme where a big multinational will go to university and say, please do this research for us, and then the output obviously will then impact. And the question is it positively impacting on that industry and that sector because the money comes from them? How do we avoid that in a South African context and still be able to generate, I suppose, some value for the research that we're conducting?
Look, at the moment, there are universities that are doing well, but there is scope to improve. We need these public-private partnerships. I mean, if a particular company has got like a 1 billion rand question, they can bring it to the professors working with PhD students and solve it, you know, using half of that amount. For us, it's good because, I mean, we're experiencing budgetary cuts and so on, and we'll be generating new skills. We need those, the partnership, you know, between universities and the private sector. But it should not be exploitative, you know. The students, if they come up with novel ideas, they must be compensated appropriately. Universities must also be given a fair share of this, you know. At the moment, most of our IP is lost, and we need to start somewhere to improve things. The model you have explained, I mean, we find it in many countries. I know Germany, they do that and so on. At the moment, we're still struggling in creating spaces where students with ideas can come up and say, look, I've got this idea, how can we, commercialize it and so on. And we have the duty to do that, to create jobs for our students and create jobs in our communities.
I mean, lest we forget, the founder of Sweep South studied that as part of her master's dissertation, I think, the model. And then once she graduated, she went and presented it to industry, and now it's probably one of the, it's not the greatest employer, but it provides employment opportunity to mainly women who would otherwise not be in places of employment. A question or two for Professor Mpedi? You guys are so satisfied today. There's a question right at the end there. Can we have a microphone, please? Do you mind standing up, sir, so that they could see you? Don't worry, I won't tell them what you were doing. The gentleman standing at the back there.
That was a great presentation, thank you. The question is, in terms of the information technology, what are the biggest challenges the universities in South Africa are facing? By the way, I'm from United States, so I'd love to learn that. So I can repeat it, yeah. What are the biggest information technology related challenges does the South African universities face today?
Okay. So information technology related challenges that South African universities face. What are those biggest challenges in your opinion?
Okay. From where I'm sitting, I'll flip it around and say, in that space, what keeps me awake at night? I mean, as institutions of higher learning, the biggest risk we're facing is connected with cybersecurity, because you've got so many people connecting on your networks, and universities are seen as soft targets. So you have to be on top of your game. Otherwise, you could be in trouble. We know of universities abroad that closed their doors after they were hit with ransomware. That is one of the biggest challenges. Another one is that some of the software, I don't want to upset any software vendors here today, some have got such a monopoly that, as institutions of higher learning, it worries me that these guys can do as they like with us. So it's something that as institutions of higher learning, we need to work together, PURCO, and develop, our own systems that we can, use as a sector, and especially those that are overseas that charge in dollars. The data that is also stored in foreign countries is also a big concern. If I could give you an example, during COVID, when telcos zero-rated access to certain educational sites, some of these could not be zero-rated because they were based in other jurisdictions, and that is also a challenge. The last one, sir, I'm giving you a long answer now, is the protection of personal information, which really is something that, when you deal with so many people, you have to be on top of your game to ensure that information of your staff and students is secure.
Yeah, thank you very much. No more hands. Oh, there's one here. I should explain that the lights are beautiful, but they brighten our eyes, so we can hardly see below the rays. That's why we have to search. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Africa. I thought while we're in this corner, we might as well go for it. Prof. Mpedi, thank you for that presentation. Excellent. Brian Nyker, global consultant in online learning. The big theme over the last couple of days has been financial sustainability at universities. Third stream income, I did a breakaway session on that, was well attended and robust discussions. What is UJ doing, and what would you like to see being done better to enhance UJ and maybe the sector's financial sustainability over the next, let's say, 5 years or so? Thank you.
All right. A good question. Just to start with, as institutions of higher learning, we need to build stronger connections with our alumni. But we are a young university in some ways. Many of our alumni are still making a name out there. But I always say every rent that is donated is a rent we never had. So that is one area to build relations, with your alumni and work together. And the other one that I think is extremely important is your third stream income, especially our continuing education programs. that would help people in industry to really sharpen their skills, improve their know-how, are extremely important. And, you know, as institutions of higher learning, we should stop thinking, you know, like we're just people who receive resources from government and from fees and have an entrepreneurial mindset, you know. I get accused that I run the university like a business, and I say, of course, you know, somebody has to keep the lights on. So we have to grab opportunities. And universities, I've got a dream. The CFO will tell you, one of my dreams now, I'm sharing our secret. Well, we have the source. If somebody steals this, it's not an idea, it's just joking. One of my dreams is to have UJ industries, where we use these technologies that we have and set up our own successful companies that will employ students and share our know-how and so on. It's work in progress, and we must just keep on pushing. And we also need to collaborate. This thing that I've got the biggest and University X has got the smallest, or vice versa, gone are the days. We need to pull resources together. One of my other dreams is our colleagues innovate. We've got a lot of innovative things in the software space that I believe at some point as a university we could be software vendors, and we should do that, you know, and start issuing licenses to other institutions to use some of our intellectual property. So those are some of the things that we're exploring to ensure that our university remains sustainable.
All right. We'll leave it there. Thank you very much for your questions, gentlemen. A round of applause, please, for Professor Mpedi from the University of Johannesburg.